We're back Saturday with Seniors, and we have Phil Butler joining us here. Grew up, spent most of about 11 years old. He said he moved to Tioga County. And let's talk about your high school years. Tell me about high school.
I went to grade school over here where the old home senior center is now. There used to be a schoolhouse. And then I went to Rockville Butler up here, and then from there I went to the senior high school where it is now. And I quit in the 10th grade. Never did finish it. When I got in the Army, I got my GED.
Through the Army. So did you go right into the Army out of high school?
Right after I got out of school, yeah.
Yep. What branch of the military did you serve in?
I went in the Army all the way. I started out with the National Guard down here at the Wellsboro Armory.
Were you deployed anywhere while you were in your service?
1962, we was deployed to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and that was for the Cuban crisis.
Which was a scary time, but luckily didn't turn into...
It turned out okay.
Yep. How long you been married? Your wife, Yvonne, wonderful lady. What year did you guys get married?
1958.
1958. And was she from Tioga County, or did she come here? You met her here, I assume?
No, she was born in Buffalo, New York, and her dad was on construction, too. But all of her grandparents live right here in the county. So then we moved back here, or they did.
And how's your wife doing? I haven't seen her in a little bit, but she's still doing well?
Oh, yes. She's still running the roost.
You kind of jokingly, when I asked you to do this program, you were a little hesitant, but your wife said what?
She said, yes, you will. So here I am.
That's how marriages last this long, right? Is that part of the secret to compromise?
That's part of it. It's not an easy road. You got to work for it.
So you've been married now for how many? Let's see, that's almost 70 years.
63 years, I believe.
So, okay, my math was a little off. 63 years, and you live up by the hogbacks up there, as they call them now.
No,
I thought you lived up that way, or you used to live up that way.
We live in Middlebury Center.
Okay,
almost into Holiday.
All right. Do you remember back the hogbacks when there were celery fields and all that there? And
yes.
Can you tell me about that? I've heard there was celery there, and that's all I know.
Well, my brother-in-law, his dad owned a lot of that field down there. And over on the back side of that marsh is the remains of cabins, and that's where all the employees lived. They come up from down south and worked up here all summer in the celery fields.
Very interesting. I'd heard that there were migrant workers.
Yes.
And so celery was raised in Tioga County, and then from what I understand, at one point DEP or somebody said, hey, we can't just keep damming off the land here.
I don't know why it went out, but I know it did. I wouldn't be a bit surprised by what they did put their foot down.
Yep. So you've probably seen a lot of things change over the years with environmental type things.
Yes, there's a lot of it.
So you did some other work along the way. You're showing me a photo album. We have some of these pictures up, again, if you watch this on our YouTube channel, of you're working on a pipeline. That's something you did a lot of your career in your lifetime?
Yes, I used to started over in the Whitefield, just over in New York State, the other side of Harrison Valley. And about a new line in from there over to Westfield.
So you were your pictures of this big steam shovel that you were running. How did you learn how to operate equipment that was as big as a house? Did they just train you on the job? Say, there's the up and down button and go?
Yeah, it's all cable operated.
Yep.
The one thing they did specify, if you don't keep these cables tight and they come off the pulleys, guess who's going to climb up there and put them back on the pulleys?
So did you ever have to do that?
No, I didn't.
Because you kept them tight.
I kept them tight all the time. Then later years, I worked for Homer Neal over here in Mansfield. He had one. We'd put a sewer line in, run alongside the glass factory up here, and went across over the road to Truck Light. And that was the same type of shovel. It was not a backhoe, it was a shovel.
Just a huge piece of equipment. I'm not sure how they'd get it from job site to, I guess on train, probably, from job site to job site?
I suspect probably here they probably did, but...
You remember when the railroads were everywhere around here, not just one little piece of track that comes to Wellsboro?
Oh, yes. They had train tracks going from Wellsboro to Gilton and from up through Mansfield to Antrim.
Did you ever ride the train as a passenger anywhere? Or just hop on and steal a ride ever?
Several years ago when the excursion train started.
The Tioga Central Railroad,
I was one of the conductors on that for a while.
You must have enjoyed that.
I did. One of the other fellows who worked there, he was the conductor on the last passenger train to come up to the canyon.
It was about 1982, I think Conrail took those tracks out, early 80s, somewhere in there, yeah.
I remember as a kid being up in the canyon and looking down in there and watching that big freight train come up through and the smoke just rolled up out of there.
Steam engines running through back then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Looks like a little toy train down there in the bottom of the canyon.
Wow.
Pretty neat.
You picture the guy in there just shoveling and all that coal, tons of coals. That was hard work working on those trains.
Down there in the bottom of the canyon, they still have the remains of the coal chute and the water tower still down there.
So you can see where that was in the old CCC camps. I know there's a plaque, too, where those were down there.
Yes, last time I was in that building, the flood, it tipped it, and it was sitting at probably a 40-degree slope.
This was a long time ago you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we used to take our cars down there, right out in Pine Creek, out in the middle of Pine Creek and wash them.
And then we were saying about environmental rules being a little different. You can't do some of these things now.
Yeah, you'd end up in Bar City.
Yep. And when the rivers flooded, you could just dig them out without any permit back then, which we've got to mess with that now.
Yeah.
Do you remember the 72 flood in Tioga County?
Yes, I do. I worked for the Corps of Engineers. I ended up with the Corps of Engineers. And I was down in Lawrenceville with an old military front-end loader. And I worked down there for a couple of months in Lawrenceville and parts of Tioga.
The pictures make it look like it was just an absolute widespread disaster.
It was. Yeah, I loaded several houses in trucks with that loader. It was a mess. House trailers laying on their sides and houses off the foundation. Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of a guy in a boat underneath the red light, holding onto the red light right there on Main Street.
That was that deep right there. Wow. And then later on, the reservoirs were built, and to prevent the floods after that, they kind of showed the need for those.
Yes, that was a lot of goings on there.
Any other memories of major things that happened in Tioga County that pop into your head?
Well, I see a lot of businesses that we used to have. They went out. I worked at a lot of them.
What were a few of the ones that you remember?
Well, in the morning going to school, I would go down there to the hotel right here in the corner.
The Lamplighter? It was called later on? The one that was on Central in Maine?
Yeah, but before that, it was a Parkview Hotel. Danny Jameson owned it. And I worked for him on mornings. I'd stop in there, clean the bar, the whole bar room, clean that, and then go to school. And on the way home from school, I stopped down the Ford garage. That was Callahan's Ford. And I would go in there and wash cars until 8, 9 o'clock that night. And then go on home and next day do it all over again. So then the lamplighter burnt down. And then I was working for a Ford garage, and he sold out. He retired, sold out, and that went to Mansfield. So I went down to the Gow Motors. That's where the Frog Hunt is now. And that was a Chrysler garage, and I worked for them for several years. And they sold out or went under. I don't recall what happened. So I went over to the Chevy garage over here. That was Evans Chevy, and that's where Denny Electric is now. And I worked for them until they sold out.
So every place you work for is sold out or closed. I'm not going to ask, but...
no, maybe especially then. I don't know what really happened. But so from there, I went down to where the AAA office is now. They used to be in Sinclair gas station there. And the fellow who owned that name was Tom Duffy. He later became one of the policemen here, and then later on over to Westfield as chief of police. I drove taxi for him.
There was taxi in Wellsboro back then?
Yes.
And you were a taxi driver. Wow.
I was a taxi driver.
I know we have Canyon Country Cabs now, but I assume that was the first taxi company ever in Wellsboro.
Oh, I remember one particular trip I used to make every Saturday and go out by Harrison State Park out there at a big farm way out at the end of a field. And pick a lady up and bring her in every Saturday for her shopping and take her back. And I told her once, I said, I bet that's a beautiful view out there in that field looking right down into the canyon. And the lady said, I've lived here all my life and I have never been out there and looked down. Could you imagine?
Sometimes you don't look at what's in your own backyard, I guess.
Yeah. I thought that would be such a beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just walk out across the field and look down at the bottom of the canyon. But she'd never done it.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been here, been there, done this, done that.
Been all over the place. And last I knew, you were a crossing guard. You were still employed. Are you still doing that work?
Yes, I retired 3 times and I got this job. So
You're not very good at retiring. So after 3 times retiring, you're now a crossing guard in Wellsboro.
yes,
Over by Kiko's at the light over there.
yes, and I enjoy every day of it.
And the kids have been wonderful. You shared a couple stories with me before, like on Veterans Day when that kid stopped by to talk to you.
Yeah, there's several really nice kids. I mean, some of these kids you'd be real proud to have as your own kid, you know? Mm-hmm. Very polite. They always thank you and good morning or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's, it all comes from somewhere, and it takes a good parenting to have good, to have that kind. They learn it.
Some of these kids have excellent parents.
Mm-hmm.
They have to have.
Yep. So here you are, still working, and you're not slowing down. So what is your secret to staying young? I mean, some people your age are not still working. Obviously, you're way above and beyond what a lot of people are still doing at your age.
Several years ago, when I did retire from Walmart, they said, "Oh, you don't want to retire; you get bored." Well, I'm still waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I left there in 2012 after 16 years. No, wait, I put 18 years in over there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story with us here. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap things up? Words of wisdom?
No, I don't have any of that. Just be yourself and enjoy your life. Someday it's going to end.
Yep. So enjoy every minute of it. And thank you so much for your time. Phil Butler joining us here on Saturday with Seniors on Keys.